The Great Postal Strike of 1970. In 1970, many postal employees went on strike. There were a total of 499 offices in 13 different states that were on a strike. Many workers were tired of poor working conditions and a low pay. When I first made my regular, my salary was $145 for 2 weeks, working 80 hours, said Dolores Young, a former employee. On March 12, 1970, Congress gave itself a 41% pay hike and offered postal workers a 5.4% raise. Many postal facilities were outraged and began a strike. Over 200,000 postal workers had walked off their jobs. President Nixon sent 23,000 military personnel to postal facilities in New York City to try and break the strike. The strike led Congress to enact the Postal Reorganization Act of 1970. On July 1, 1971, five of the eight postal unions came together to form the American Postal Workers Union. Preventing employment discrimination. In 1964, Title VII of the Civil Rights Act was signed into law. This prevented an employer from declining a raise or job application because of someone's sex, race, or religion. This is important because when someone applies for a job, they are now protected and they don't have to worry about getting declined because of their race. This act also makes it so that employers can't determine someone's pay by their sex or religion. In 1978, the Pregnancy Discrimination Act was added to Title VII of the Civil Rights Act. This made it illegal to discriminate pregnant women in the workplace. Even though this act was made a law, there are many reports of employers discriminating people because of their sex, race, and religion. New York Shirtwaist Strike of 1909. In 1909, shirtwaist workers went on strike to protest for shorter working hours and more pay. They also wanted better working conditions and they were concerned about the locked doors in the factories. They wanted a 20% pay raise and a 52-hour work week with extra pay for overtime. Most factories accepted these and the workers went back after a few months, but the owners of the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory were anti-union. Eventually in 1910, the owners agreed to raise pay and lower hours, but they didn't unlock doors. The workers eventually went back to work. On March 25, 1911, there was a fire that killed 146 workers. Strike wave of 1945-1946. In 1945 and 1946, the largest strike in U.S. history occurred. 2 million people walked off their jobs at different times during the year. In some cities, the strikes even led to general strikes as workers protested for union recognition and wage and benefit increases. In Stamford, Connecticut, workers poured into the city to show support for the strikers. There were also strikes in Rochester, New York, and Oakland, California. The Oakland strike essentially shut down the city for a couple of days. March of the Mill Children. The March of the Mill Children was a 3-week trek from Philadelphia to New York by striking child and adult textile workers on July 7, 1903. The woman who launched this was Mary Harris Mother Jones, and she wanted child labor to end. 46,000 textile workers, including children, demanded a reduced work week of 55 hours and a ban on night work for children and women.